Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingsar. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders to create heart-centered and profitable businesses from the inside out, the kind that both employees and customers love and support. Thanks to BizSimply for sponsoring this episode as our show partner, and BizSimply is the all-in-one HR, workforce management, rota and operations software designed and built by hospitality experts to make every shift run like clockwork. And we join forces to help the industry to find new ways to become even more innovative in how we lead our people, how we operate, to how we grow our businesses, to how we serve our customers. Together we want to share strategies and tools that can make the industry thrive long term, not just survive.
There's crisis, isn't there? So we need some drastic change. And I think that restaurants can be a catalyst for some of this drastic change. So restaurants have this incredible part to play in the life of a thriving society because they're prolific, they're everywhere, and they are mainstream. You know, lots of people eat out of all different budgets and all different demographics. Lots of people eat out. So restaurants have this incredible part to play in being a catalyst for much needed social change.
This is Carlys Trisk-Grove, co-creator of OPOP. And she and the team at OPOP believes it's now time for a national restaurant service. We'll dive into what that means in the conversation. But they opened back in July 2021 as a social experiment with a mission to change the landscape for casual dining, putting community back in the heart of restaurants. It's founded by husband and wife team Ian and Carly, who brings great business skills and hospitality experience from operating a very successful purpose-driven cafe. Carly shares the story behind the deep purpose of using restaurants on the high streets as a vehicle for positive change. We also dive into how they can address obesity, access to good work, and loneliness. We also talk about how hospitality as a business can be key to learn people about good food and how that can impact both their own health, but also the impact that will have on the planet. We talk about hospitality has a huge responsibility as an employer due to we actually employ 8% of the national workforce, especially young people in their first jobs. So we talk about how you can create good jobs and conditions that will not only make it good for business short term, but also make the industry a great place to work in the long term. We also discuss why the industry needs to change their approach to leadership and culture, what they have learned from launching in pandemics, and also how she looks at the future of hospitality. Before you tune in, please sign up for our weekly newsletter, packed with more Maverick insights, strategies, and tools. You will find a link in the show notes or visit hospitalitymavericks.com. Before I hand over to Carly, I also wanted to say that I've been talking with Carly for some years and I love what they're doing. And I really look forward to share this conversation with you. It will make you reflect and think about what your own role is in hospitality when it comes to create a better world. Enjoy. Today, we will be diving into what I know lots of you people that tunes in to this show, but also, as you know myself, I'm very passionate about finding a different way. There must be a better way of building, businesses within our beloved industry. And that was actually why Hospitality Mavericks was founded some years ago, because I wanted to find a better way and share these stories. And today's guest, I connected with, I think it's a couple of years ago now, but we can revisit that in a moment. But from the outset, we both believed there was a different way. And there must be a better way to build hospitality businesses that only not do great business results, but also make a positive impact for people, the communities they're part of, and the end, the planet and humanity. And with that said, I think I will just guide us straight into the conversation. Welcome to the show, Carly. Finally, we're here to share your story and your insights and thoughts and philosophies about how you build better.
Oh, there is a better way, isn't there? There's definitely a better way. Yes, and thank you for giving me the platform to talk about my favorite subject.
Just for people out there that don't, haven't heard about you before and what you've done, because you're not new in hospitality. You had a business prior to your new business, OPOP. would you just give them like, a little overview, maybe your elevator pitch, but also talk about your journey to open the business you have now, which is a social enterprise, first of all, as a core, but also how you got there?
Gosh, so I started with a hut in a park in around 2005. Quickly realized that people liked what I was doing, which was essentially bringing affordable food to the masses. I mean, that's what it was about 18 years ago. That's what it's actually still about. Affordable food, but food that was good for people and for planet. So we started in a park in 2005. We fairly quickly outgrew our hut. We managed to raise the money that was needed to build ourselves a permanent building. And we ran the cafe in the park, which still trades, but is nothing to do with me. But we ran it for around 14 years. We had a team of around 22 full-time people. And, we proved in a very painful way. I mean, we called it my expensive hobby for about the first 7 or 8 years. That's a long time. But we proved eventually that you can do business well and feed people well in a way that serves the planet well, at an affordable price. So it really did do everything I wanted it to do. And then we had the opportunity to sell it. I think I took it to a place where I felt I couldn't do any more. We'd kind of outgrown it. And I probably swore I'd never run a restaurant again. Actually, not probably. My kids would definitely say I said that. And we had the opportunity to move to Devon, which is an extraordinary opportunity when you have 3 kids, 2 of them who are in their teenage years, that are willing to move and make a completely drastic move from Hertfordshire to Devon. So we did that, and I dreamed up a new idea for a business, which I opened in July of last year, right in the middle of the pandemic. So already I'm sounding slightly crazy, I guess. But the idea was to take on what we'd learned from our Cafe in the Park business, but to formalize the element that was all about social good. So create a social enterprise version of a restaurant. And the idea was to create a model for casual dining that was better, not just for the people that work in it, but for the community that it serves, for the people that eat in it. And the reason we had to do this as a social enterprise is because it has to be not driven by profit. Of course, profit is important. We're still a business that seeks to generate profit, but it's what we do with that profit that, although just, a caveat, we haven't yet made any profit. That's not where we are yet, but that's, I guess, another part of the story. But we're early days still. So the idea is a blueprint for restaurants that are run better. It's OPOP. So OPOP is the restaurant. It stands for One Plate, One Price. The idea was to create a canteen, a kind of a humble eatery where people came and ate big plates of food at an affordable price, food that was good for them and good for the planet, and kind of came together with their community in a hub. Connectivity and bringing people together over food as equals. That's the basic principle.
And the purpose of, you said, it's more than just being in business. It's also to be able to use that, whatever profit you make, to make the world a better place. Is there anything already in your roadmap when you get to that point? That's what you want to do. This is what you want to transform.
The way I see it, the world is, there's crisis, isn't there? So we need some drastic change. And I think that restaurants can be a catalyst for some of this drastic change. So restaurants have this incredible part to play in the life of a thriving society because, they're prolific, they're everywhere, and they are mainstream. Lots of people eat out of all different budgets and all different demographics. Lots of people eat out. So restaurants have this incredible part to play in being a catalyst for much needed social change. And I've kind of honed into 3 areas that I think that restaurants can really make a difference in. So the first is around healthy eating and modeling healthy eating, particularly around obesity. So we have a huge problem with obesity in this country. It costs, I'm not even going to quote the figures, it's in the billions what it costs our government. And there's a number of failed policies. So one approach and one thing that we're really keen to do is work with an academic partner in assessing whether restaurants can play a part in this and can model healthy eating in a social setting rather than a clinical one, because I think there's a lot of agreement amongst academics that obesity and a lot of health-related food-related health issues even are treated as clinical issues. Really, actually, they're social issues. So that's one area. Can we bring people to restaurants, model how to eat well, but not in a way that's not fun or not pleasurable? Demonstrate that there's a way to do both. Then the second one is access to good work. So hospitality, I mean, this is pre-pandemic, so maybe figures have changed, but hospitality employs over 8% of the UK working population. I think close to retail, we're the second or third biggest employers. You probably know the facts more than me, but that's obviously huge. And according to the Joseph Rowntree Association, in-work poverty is growing in our sector. I mean, in-work poverty, that means people that are working and are poorer for it. That's just a crazy situation. And we can't be a sector that contributes towards that. I mean, nobody can think that's right. So we need to demonstrate that hospitality can become a better employer. And there's lots of things in our model that contribute towards that. For example, saying no to split shifts, offering 4-day weeks, all the things that offer a work-life balance. So that's the kind of second major social issue I think that restaurants can address. And the third is loneliness. I mean, we have a government minister for loneliness in this country. That's an appalling thing to acknowledge. We've lost so many of our shared spaces, be that in the form of pubs or community halls or bingo halls, or there are just fewer places where we can go and meet our community and be together. So I think that not that I'm suggesting that restaurants offer free food. This isn't a soup kitchen model, but that if we can create restaurants that are more affordable and more inclusive, then maybe they can be the shared spaces that our communities are so desperate for. And we can really look at reducing the level of loneliness in our country, and maybe maybe the money that we spend on a minister for loneliness can be funding people to eat out. There's an idea.
Yeah, and then there's which I don't have the numbers on this. Is my gut says we also spend quite a lot of money on pharmaceutical products to people to deal with loneliness, depression, and so on. Quite interesting. You talked about this access to good work, and there's definitely a running theme through the industry now because we are lacking hands to do the work. We're all struggling for finding enough people. Do you think that could start giving a catalyst for creating better jobs, because we just have to, or else there'll be nobody to do the job that you're set in the world to do, like serve customers and make food? And you still see restaurants, even in the, you call it the aftermaths of the pandemic, can't have open all the time. They need to maybe only open 4 days a week, or really reduce their capacity. Do you think that actually this can be a catalyst for positive change when it comes to make work better?
Well, as you say, it has to be, or we're going to see the industry disappear. So I think what we need to do, one of the elements to our model was to also build an academy to help people do two things, really: to join the industry and actually grow in terms of their own personal development, because I think we as an industry have a terrible reputation for churning people through and not giving them any skills to take to their next role. So the academy was all about delivering the skills that I think are lacking often in the academic side of hospitality, which are the skills around human behavior and conflict resolution. Because I think, in my experience, that's where there's a lot of problem in hospitality, and that's why a lot of people leave it, because we are not good at dealing with conflict. And actually, we need to teach that to people, particularly younger people that are coming into the industry. We need to show it as a positive space to be in. Then the other thing that I think that we need to demonstrate is that a lot of people that join hospitality, myself included, did so because eventually they wanted to have their own place. A lot of people have big ideas about their own restaurants. And I think really we'd love to see a scene in hospitality where there were so many more independence. I feel very sad about the number of chain restaurants that we have on our high streets that I mean, in my humble opinions, often serve kind of reheated food at overinflated prices. But if we could teach a lot of these young people some of the business acumen that they need, then maybe we'll see change makers coming out of these jobs, these young people going into hospitality roles. Personally, if you ask me, I'd like to see it as a national service. I think everyone should spend 6 months in hospitality, but only in the right jobs. We need to teach people ways to behave and ways to give feedback and ways to listen actively and ways to bring their whole selves to work. And I think we might change the industry that way. At the moment, all I can see is people throwing more money at people to offer them jobs and to try and incentivize them. And I think we all know, and I'm pretty sure you're a fan of Dan Pink too, that money doesn't, money isn't the biggest incentive. It's mastery, autonomy, and purpose that we all need. And I think those are the things that we should be focusing on.
It's really interesting what you say, and I was just nodding as you were saying all these things because we're very aligned on that. But I think also there is this life skills that's actually we very easily can give people in hospitality, because that was one of the reasons why I stayed, because I learned some skill, and I'm probably lucky also to have some very good people that took me under their wings and learned me life skill around conflict management, that people are different, trying to understand people before you talk. And I'm still training these skills, but like very early on in my life, I learned these things. And that was because I was in hospitality and I had a good mentor, but I was totally locked. It was like throwing the dice. I was just lucky. I could also have had a totally different experience. But I also really love the idea around where you talk about look at how we actually use our industry to create entrepreneurs, because there's so many entrepreneurial skills that can be learned in hospitality if we just in a way made well. Because the most important skill for an entrepreneur is not marketing or raising money. That's a skill you can learn by studying it. It's actually all the invisible human things about human energy, reading the team, reading your partner, understand how you behave in the social setting, all those things. So yeah, we are in the business of making business people. I think that was Ari Weinzweig from Zingerman that said that on the podcast. Their job is not to create employees; they're creating business people, and they hope either they create a business idea within their business or go on and do something else because they need better business people. That was what his view on it. So I totally agree on that.
And more change makers.
Yeah, and more change maker that actually that wants to change things from the inside out. And you talked a bit about also the high street, and I guess we are at a pivotal moment with it, because we talked before the pandemic about the high street that was dying, and I guess I don't know. I haven't been everywhere in the UK, but I've been around some high streets here in the aftermath of the pandemic, and it looks quite looming. It looks like we're definitely gonna have more shops close, and I know new one will come up before new ones comes again. So we also have a huge commercial issue if we don't get our high street brought back to life, and actually where people are gathering and getting away from their homes and meeting other people. And I love that idea about that you could see that concept be rolled out to different settings as well. But one of the things I was thinking, I was preparing for this, Carly, and we've had this conversation offline a couple of times. Like, what have your experience been launching? Because you said people must think I'm nuts on launching in the pandemic, but maybe also the greatest opportunity. But what have your experience been launching in the pandemic? Did you have to change your vision, your roadmap, because you've been thrown the same challenges as anyone else?
I mean, it's difficult because not only have I changed, have I started in a pandemic, I've opened a business in a new area. So it's difficult to know if what I'm saying is as a result just of the pandemic or of the geography. So certainly I'm seeing habits have changed and people are spending less money on going out, but that might be a geography thing as well. I mean, I think habits have changed. Sadly, I think the supermarkets are winning. They're keeping, with their meal deals and their cheap alcohol, they're keeping people in. And actually, we're forgetting that, we're actually happier. We're social creatures. That we're happier when we socialize. It takes effort, and it's often uncomfortable, but generally, it's worth it. And so I think what I've seen is that habits have changed, and people are just finding excuses not to go out. And that's what we need to remind ourselves as a society, that we're better together. We find, the connections make us stronger, and that's what we gain. That we can't get that from our sofas. And so, yes, I would say that what I've seen is that, but also I think in terms of people, I think furlough has been obviously a brilliant success for lots of businesses, and I'm not knocking the furlough scheme in its entirety, but I think furlough has made people realize that they quite like doing less. Maybe, I don't know, it feels like people want to work less, or maybe they just want to work in hospitality less, or maybe more people have realized that they can work from the comfort of their own homes more. And so I worry that the pandemic has changed the desire to work in this industry, and has given this industry a bad name compared to some of the more kind of content creator type roles that you can do from the comfort of your own house. But I think what we're missing here, this fundamental idea that actually being in service is actually a huge privilege, whether you're in service, whatever industry. When you're serving, you're seeing, you're getting to know people, you're having conversations, and hospitality is just so unique, because you're spending time with people that are choosing to be out and choosing to come somewhere to have a good time. And I think it's this unique privilege that you get to be with lots of people all the time that are choosing to, have fun, rather than, a desk job that might be much more convenient and maybe more lucrative, but it must be lonelier. It can't be good for your physical well-being, and I don't think it's good for your mental well-being. So I think I'm seeing some downsides from both, customer habits and employee habits.
What is the industry's role in all this? Because there's no doubt about, I've rather used this word chaos, but there's definitely a feel of chaos in the world in general right now. And what is the role of hospitality in your view here? How can we, as an industry, participate? Because I guess it's a lot about being in service is also participating in solving problems.
Yeah, and I think the first thing to acknowledge is that at the end of the day, it's all individual people's responsibility within the industry. And I think what we need to acknowledge is that actually doing things right is the harder way. It's about playing the long-term game, but eventually it's probably going to be better for your own mental well-being. So I think business leaders need to really question what their game plan is, because what they should do for the industry is one thing, but I think more importantly, what people should do for themselves is realize that actually running a business the right way, you've got much more chance of it surviving. A sustainable business is more sustainable. So I think that we just need to talk about that more, and talk about what the real problems are, and really look at ourselves, because we're all part of the problem and we can all be part of the solution.
And that's really interesting, because I guess a lot of us has, had these conversations with ourselves, during the pandemic, during lockdowns, that this is the time for change. We need to go out and change. We need to go out and change practices around how we run our businesses. And I know because I'm lucky to talk a lot of game changers that want to change things, and then they come out and reality hits them. So they have this plan, philosophy that they want to change something, but then the rest of the world is not doing it, or they feel they don't feel in a majority. They are a very little small group of people who want to do that. Have that been your own experience as well, that you have this, you have a very clear vision, you know what you want to change, but then when you put it into reality and the wheels hit the road, it's just challenging?
I think nobody's thought that my ideas are bad, so that's definitely reassuring. But yeah, you're right. I'm just a lone voice and a small voice. But I guess, change has to come from somewhere. I think that's why what I wanted to do is actually build the model, so that I had a working model to say, look, this is the way, because I think it's very easy to talk about it, and a lot harder to do it. I spend a lot of my time trying to make connections with people, from charities, from the Campaign to End Loneliness, to the Committee for Social Prescribing, to academic bodies looking into new ways of supporting people with obesity. And I spent a lot of time trying to network and trying to kind of put links between all these different bodies and say, look, maybe this is the answer. In World War II, the Labour government introduced the British restaurants. I think there were over 600 restaurants that were quite unique because they weren't soup kitchens. They weren't just feeding people that were poor. They were actually bringing together people as equals over a table with a tablecloth and decent food. And the Labour government saw that actually a society that was fairly broken, the thing it needed more than anything was to be brought together as equals, and that societies that are more equal are the societies that are happier. There's a lot of research that backs up that thinking. And so, again, I've kind of gone off tangent, but yes, I am a lone voice, and a national restaurant service is a big goal. But I guess at some point we need some radical ideas to address some of these issues. And the thing I think about a national restaurant service is that it doesn't have to be completely funded by grants and government. A restaurant group can run pretty effectively without funding. But if you were going to top some of that up, let's say 80% funded by revenue and maybe 20% funded by various different charities and social prescribing, maybe there's a model in there, maybe there's a balance where we can end up funding people's medical need and put that money towards their social need.
Yeah, and I really like that you talk about, food in a way for social justice in principle also, but also bringing people together, because there's nothing more powerful. I know that from other business I've been running, and when you put people together around a table and good food on it, and they become equals. It doesn't matter if you're a director or you're an assistant or you're the intern, suddenly you become equal because you're talking about the food and you start to solve problems indirectly. So it's very, very powerful. And it's really interesting as you bring this up now, some people has like said very radical. It feels like the aftermaths after a war we're going through mentally. Well, my dad talks about that, and he was part of the Second World War and really had that close in the family because my granddad was in the resistance movement and got captured by the German at that point, and they really had grief and so on. And then he said it feels a bit like I feel the same vibe, but it's just covered up a bit in all this digital commercial stuff. He says he's not on social media, that's not what he does, but he just feels that the world have forgot a bit about each other. He said we're not coming together as a society, and of course we have to create vehicles for this, and that's what you talk about when you talk about an experiment or something like that. As you've been building this business, and as a new business, it's really driven on purpose and social impact. What have your thoughts been around leadership and management, and what have you been experimenting with? Because I know you started out with a very different approach, which I was like, when I said to you, absolutely great, Carly, go ahead, man, this is the future, this is where leadership is going to be changed.
Yeah, as we've discussed, we looked at the works of people like Frederick Laloux and reinventing organizations, and we thought about, okay, we're doing some revolutionary things here with creating a new model for casual dining. Actually, I should be clear that I'm definitely talking about casual dining when I talk about restaurants, because I think the fine dining side of the industry is quite different. So yeah, we're looking at self-managed teams, and what would that look like in hospitality? And if anyone knows anything about self-organization and self-managed teams, there's a huge number of success stories. And the kind of the basic principles are that people bring their whole selves to work, people take responsibility for the job they do, people have more autonomy, people make decisions collectively. But within all of that, there's a framework. So I went away before we started, and I diligently wrote my playbook, which kind of put all these principles into place that people could understand what was the driver. Simon Sinek, we started with why we wanted to do that, because I guess, again, now going back to Dan Pink, the autonomy was kind of, right, this is where the industry's gone wrong. We're so full of copycat chains where the autonomy's gone. People have no skills anymore because everything's cooked in a central kitchen. No one's, we're losing all the skill from the industry. So we need to put autonomy back centrally. And I think that's where the self-organization came from. People could drive their own day. And so we put in place structures about how we would make decisions as a team, what sort of decision we'd make as a team, who you might speak to about a decision. We talked about consensus versus consent. So what that means is that if you're making decisions as a group, you don't have to have consensus. You don't have to have everybody around the table in agreement, but what you have to have is consent to give it a go. If no one puts their hand up and says, I won't do it, then they're giving you their consent, even if they're not completely behind the idea. So we had kind of all these structures in place, and these aren't my ideas; they're the ideas borrowed from a number of people that have written on the subject. And then there's all the organisations, as you know, Bertsolf being the most famous, that make this work very well. And I was of the belief that I wasn't the manager; I was a leader, but I was the leader on vision. Someone else might be the leader on coffee. Someone else might be, that leadership is about earning respect from your team and leading by example. And it's not about hierarchy, I guess. This is all about a flat structure and treating each other as equals. That does not necessarily mean that everyone's paid the same. Everyone brings different experience to the table, but that everybody has the equal opportunity to have their voice heard. It wasn't easy, and we've actually had to go back to the beginning and kind of restart again because things have been hard. But I guess what I've learned is maybe that sort of structure doesn't work for hospitality. Or if it does, maybe what you need to do first is have your frameworks and your organized or your operational approach very, very firmly in place, because there was kind of too much for everyone to agree or disagree on it. The foundations of the business weren't set enough. And in the end, it became a little bit of a weapon that people used against me if we made a decision, for example, how we put cutlery on the tables. If that wasn't done as a group, suddenly we weren't following our principles and we weren't staying true to our core. And it became exhausting because actually what we wanted people to do was to help shape the journey, and it wasn't about the detail, but it became too detail orientated. That being said, I still think it's very much the approach. We need to put autonomy back, but I think probably what we need to do is also introduce the academy side of it. So teach the skills that people need around conflict resolution and active listening. And I think maybe if we had the time and the finances to do that, then maybe we would have had a team that would have been able to hear each other more, and maybe everyone would have taken responsibility instead of no one taking responsibility, which then left me in a bad place. But I take full responsibility for that. There was a lot of learning. And I'm starting again already, only 8 months in, by building it back up again, brick by brick, as it were.
Yeah, and I think also because in principle, you are not just trying to do it for your business. You are, in a way, you're hiring people as might been in similar jobs before. Suddenly, that's a whole new way of operating. That's my own experience as well. So actually, how to decode or unlearn the way of, how I work and how normally things are done, it can be quite challenging, as well as going through a pandemic on top of it. And I think also that's one of the things that's worth taking it, because been on a similar journey myself. I just know it's not because people don't want, but also it could be the skill set that you said, like suddenly the skills you need to be successful in a job, it's not how fast you run or that you can do it quicker or you can sell up more than others. Exactly, these human skills again. And that's exactly what makes leaders is they're very good at doing the invisible stuff, that nobody knows, and they train that. It's not something they just learned because they were born in a specific place with specific mom and dad. It's actually something they train to become good at, like these human skills. And suddenly if people come in out of the blue, they need to lead themselves. It can be a very big ask, because I think a lot of people don't know how to lead themselves as well.
Yeah, I think, people, first of all, this can't work, this principle, without people knowing themselves really well. And I think something that we probably get wrong, like in education, you had a very different education from me, but in British education, we don't talk about enough, what we're good at and what we're not good at. And I think if more people recognize what they're not good at and what they're good at, maybe what they could do is say, well, this is what I can bring to the party. What are you going to bring to the party? And, it kind of accepting that we've all got different skills and strengths, and, we've all got something to learn from someone, and we've all got something to teach. We need to be humble enough to learn. And, we need to be bold enough to lead, I guess.
Yeah, and I really, applaud you for not giving up on the idea, because I still believe fundamentally in the idea like you, but sometimes you need to experiment and find out step by step what works and doesn't work. So there's no doubt about this is definitely part of the solution to build not just a better industry, but a better world where people take themselves wholly to work and actually have an impact. What is going from the leadership conversation and the way you approach management, and now you're trying to decode and recode your algorithm for leadership? What about how does that connect it with the staffing crisis? Because people say, well, it's not just hospitality, it's everywhere where there's frontline people, we struggle to get hands enough. Do you think leadership approach in general, the industry, very top down, traditional? Maybe some people would disagree with me, but I still think we have a very top down industry. Command and control is the way we do it.
So I think, you can have the top down. So there's something about experience, isn't there, that kind of that hierarchy forms naturally because the people with the experience sit at the top. But maybe there's a few things. So one of the things we wrote into our articles, into the legal framework of our business, was about ratios of salary. So I think that is a huge thing, and our industry is probably notorious for the people at the top being, or the top in inverted commas, being paid huge multiples of the people at the bottom. So I think that one thing that we need to do is make commitments to what those ratios are and to keep them respectable. And the way we looked at it is, if we have a ratio of, let's say, we actually put eight times, that we were never going to pay the people at the top of our business any more than 8 times people at the bottom. Top and bottom are terrible words, so you get what I mean. We need to put new words in there. But and the idea was, by doing that, then we would always be looking at, instead of how much we pay the highest paid, but we'll always be looking at trying to improve the pay of those the least paid, because ultimately that then improves the ability to pay everyone more, if that makes sense. So that's kind of one fundamental thing that I think you might still have a hierarchy, but there's a kind of element of respect, and that and I think that's something that the pandemic really showed us, that we are all interdependent, that I can't do my job if you don't do yours, and you don't do yours. So there's no point, we have to acknowledge that. And that some of us have had the fortune to grow up somewhere that we had better access to better education, or maybe our home life was more stable, or we've all got different situations and different privileges that might put us in situations that mean that we have a higher salary or higher up the career ladder than someone else. But ultimately, we all need each other. And so I just think, in my utopian world, but actually probably in reality as well, that businesses will work better if everyone works towards a common goal and supports each other. And so, yeah, I think hierarchy within the industry we probably have to wait a while until we can completely scrap hierarchy, because it's a kind of stressful, intense situation where sometimes people have to make snap decisions. And I think, it's not like a software company where kind of decisions have to be made at the moment. But I think there's a huge amount of acknowledging that we are all human beings. We are all equal. We all have something to contribute. That's a big piece that needs to be looked at in our industry.
Yeah, and you mentioned Birdsong before, the care company in Holland, and I think I wouldn't say care is directly equal with what you do in the frontline hospitality, but there is some degree of it, and that actually gives me hope. It's possible when you can create a company of 10,000 employees to be able to work as a self-organized organization. But of course, that's a journey. It's not like something you decide on a weekly workshop that out.
No, but it shows it's possible, doesn't it?
Yeah. What is your prediction for if you had the crystal ball, Carly, and looked at hospitality and where we are now? I think it's a very very scary but also exciting place to be right now, because we can rewrite the playbook, but it could also be a very challenging time that comes ahead, as you said as well. I've heard it from others saying as well. There was some excitement going out eating. It feels like, now we plateaued a bit, and the world has just become, again, with a war going on in Europe, like something has just shaken us again, getting nervous about what's going to happen. What is the next move here in life?
So what we need to do is we need to celebrate the great that can come from bringing people together and reminding ourselves that the pandemic has made us become more isolated. Mental health has become a much bigger issue, particularly with young people, and that the solution to so many of our problems are about society and equality, and that's where hospitality can really, it can, we can decide as an industry that we're going to just play the old game and put our heads in the sand and hope for better, or we can really make some fundamental radical changes. It requires people, maybe, can I say this? It requires people to be a bit less greedy in terms of the money they make. That comes from the investors and the CEOs and the probably across the board. We need to share the wealth. We need to distribute it more evenly within the industry. The people that are on the shop floor serving customers need to be paid better so that they can have a better quality of life, so that they stay in the industry, so that we don't have this huge change around, that it's not this transient industry. It becomes a career again, like it is in other countries, like it used to be in our country. It becomes more respected. We start telling our kids to go and be chefs again because we can see that there's future and there's prospects. Then we, the whole thing kind of, it's a cyclical thing. Then we get more people that are well trained so that they can go and be teachers of food and nutrition in schools. Because I don't know about your kids, but my kids learned food and nutrition through YouTube. They literally set up a laptop in the classroom because there were no teachers. So this is a big problem. This is not going to be resolved in the next year or the next 5 years, but we have to start working towards better. And yeah, I think the biggest thing here is a little bit of wealth redistribution.
Yeah, and I think also it's interesting when you just touch on there is like hospitality can also be like a vehicle for understanding and engaging better with food, and the whole food system, which also is we're entirely breaking down across the world, and that has huge impact on us and the generations to come if we can't feed ourselves and we don't have that respect for where the food comes from, the soil, for example. I think there's so many deep things that hospitality can be part of changing, and we have the opportunity now to write a new chapter, or even a new playbook, I would say, for how we do things. And I really endorse that you're trying to do that on the journey the last couple of years, probably more than 2 years with the pandemic things. What is like your most significant learning? Because like it's always tough to start a business. And then the pandemic, and then you want to do something that's radical different. You're setting the bar very high ambition. What has that been like, the learning you would like to share with people?
Well, I guess in hindsight, I shouldn't have taken on a site before I'd proved. I should have started small again. Even though I'd run a restaurant before, I think I should have started small with the idea, because what I've left myself with is too many overheads to have to manage, so that I'm not really able to work on the business. I'm too busy working in the business, which means I can't grow things. So really what I should have done in retrospect is not taken on a site which is kind of I just wanted bricks and mortar to say this is the idea, this is the model, come and see it. But maybe in hindsight, I would have been better off not just talking about the theory, because I think it's very important that we start doing and we don't just talking, but maybe working with someone on a pop-up, building it that way. Maybe, I think, yeah, not maybe, I think definitely, because like I said, now I'm a little bit stuck, and until I find someone that wants to collaborate or potentially invest, somebody that gets it, somebody can see that this has legs, that this is the way the industry is going. Until that point, I'm a little bit stuck in working in it, and it's very frustrating because the purpose is what drives me.
So it's really interesting. So acknowledging that, That you created a bit of a challenge situation, but actually you would have loved to start a bit like an experiment on different things. But also you're taking responsibility where you are now. Love that. What about people on your journey? You probably met a lot, but there's probably some people that's been very significantly impacting you and influencing you to do what you do today and the journey you're on. Who are the most? There's probably many people, but like, who are the top three people that's influenced you?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. I mean, definitely the chair of our board, who is Karen Lynch, who is vice chair of Social Enterprise UK. She is definitely a tour de force in the world of social enterprise, and really just has our back at every turn in this. And I guess fundamentally, the biggest thing she does is believe in us, which when you're having a low moment, having someone that believes in you is really beyond helpful. It's been a bit of a lonely journey. I'm speaking to a lot of people that are enthusiastic and get it, and but then they go quiet, because ultimately I'm asking people to really look at themselves and change, and social enterprise really requires people to put their, and so does self-organization, to people to put their ego to one side, and to say, this isn't about me, this is about doing something better and doing something that creates change. And so I'm not saying that there aren't those people around, of course, and I'm definitely not the only person that feels like that, but in this industry, in this area, I'm not meeting the people that everyone's firefighting. Do you know, that's what it is? It's not even about the ego piece. It's the fact that everyone's firefighting and people are just too busy keeping their heads above water to play the long game.
Yeah, and I guess that's also an outcome of where we are right now in the world. There's a lot of people where everything is on stake. It's they're going through. I think you're right about that. But also I think there's an element of being brave enough to believe in the new thing and throw yourself out there, because I think I talked with somebody the other day where I said, like, but we can't really predict anything anymore. The only thing you can control is yourself and what you do with your time and where you invest your time, because so long as you believe in that it's gonna be the right thing to do and you are giving more than you take, then I believe you will have a place in the future. I don't know where or when, how, but that's how I approach things myself. But you really have to deeply believe the only thing you can impact is yourself and your own behavior. How do you show up? I call it pro or strong every day, because you're a founder slash CEO of a new venture, and you've been very honest, and thank you for sharing that. It's challenging. And how do you find the boost and energy there is to show up in the way you need to keep on going, 1% every day?
I guess the answer is I probably have moments when I show up strong and lots of moments when I don't. So I think there's something really important about showing your vulnerability, and I'm very happy and willing to do so, and I do so quite often. But I guess what keeps me going is because I truly believe that if you want you have to acknowledge that it's not going to be easy to make change, and that this really, really the idea, again, that restaurants really have this place in our society to be this catalyst, it's a moment in time. It's an idea whose time has come. We need change, and it needs businesses need to drive forward that change. Businesses are the way that individuals in our society create change a lot of the time, charities and businesses. And so so I just have to remind myself that the purpose and the passion is still there. But yeah, as I say, the vulnerability side as well, I think people need to see the whole person. And I'm definitely good at showing the whole person.
Yeah, there's no doubt about you're carrying a lot in on the journey where you is right now, and I think vulnerability is actually, it's become a bit of a buzzword, but showing it as a leader, it's a very, very different thing, and being willing to share that, because, that's also where positive things happen because it shows you're human. You are not a robot in principle, a computer, as one of my friends says. Like, now you're a computer, Michael. You're not a human. And it's really interesting. He sees a bit like lots of people have become even more computer driven because of the pandemic, because they've been sitting more behind screens. So therefore they forgot to be humans. He has a really interesting thoughts on that. Taking that in mind, that we need to change and we need to have a purpose, and what would your advice be to leaders out there if restaurants has to be a catalyst for change, in not just in our industry but in society? What is your top advice to leaders out there right now?
I mean, you said it before, and you quoted Gandhi, be the change you want to be. You have to live it. You have to live it. And I think the biggest thing you can do as a leader is lead on vision. Because you can, if it's your idea, you have to make sure that everything you're doing is aligned to your vision. Everything else can be brought by someone else on the team. But if you're the leader, if it's your project, you have to drive on the vision. And as I can't remember who it was that said that when you're trying to when you're leading on vision, you have to be quite vision is visual, isn't it? So you have to really kind of conjure up an image. And in Martin Luther King's speech, I had a dream. I can't quote it exactly, but it was something about little white girls holding the hands of little black girls, or it was very, very clear what his vision was. And I think that was a real moment for me, that I have to be really, really clear, because if I'm not clear about the vision, no one's going to follow me.
I love that. That's a super advice, because back to Zingerman's, I often quote it on the show, is like they spend time every year on their vision together with their people and really trying to explain and exemplify what the vision is. As you told Martin Luther King there, is actually making it so spelled out that anyone will be able to understand what kind of world we're trying to create, or what kind of business or community we are trying to and actually often we think vision is about those two liners about something in the future, and then put it on the wall or down in the drawer again or in the presentation, and we forget about it. But actually it's stories, and exemplifying, as you said, because lots of people can remember Martin Luther King. Maybe they can't remember the specific word, but they absolutely understand, even to this day, that what it was all about. It was actually solving a big issue of inequality in the world.
Yeah, and he simplified it. Exactly.
Is there any question, or is there one question you wish that I've asked you? And what would you have answered?
I guess the big question is, what do I need? And then the answer, that's harder. What do I need? Well, I guess, first of all, it's not about it's about the idea and the vision. The vision needs people that believe in it, and people that can see that it's got legs, and that maybe that that we need radical thinking. Paying people more, dropping split shifts, adopting 4-day weeks, offering food that's more affordable. They're all ideas that are quite not in line with the way that mainstream casual dining is going. But we need to acknowledge that what we're doing is fairly broken. It's not working for people, for communities. And so what I need is for people to not just agree with what I'm saying, but to put their feet forward and come and join us on this journey, whether they're academics that want to join us in terms of research and demonstrate that this movement, that this idea of a national research restaurant service is an idea whose time has come, whether it's people that have work in high street regeneration that can see that this idea might not bring the kudos that a big national restaurant chain might bring to a town centre, but it might bring more shared spaces and be better in long term for their communities and bring more people into the high street. So I just want to speak to people that get what we're saying, and whether they want to advise us or support us or work with us, I'd love people to get in touch.
And where did they do that?
Oh, well, the website, so we're called OPOP. So the website is opop.org.uk, or find us on Instagram, OPOP _1 plate 1 price. Or come and visit us in the restaurant in Ashburton. It's an old spray shop. It's a great site, big garden. It's, if you're on holiday in Devon, look us up.
Great, Carly. We will put all the things in the show notes as well, so people can find your either traveling there or connect with you online in any kind of way. Thank you so much, Carly, for coming, sharing this journey and the successes, but more important, the learnings and the challenges this brings as well, and the change that needs to happen. And thank you for being, that vision and inspiration for a better industry.
Well, and thank you for your thoughtful questions and for your interest in what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Carly. I really love the whole idea about how you're trying to set a new and better way of building hospitality businesses that gives more than they take. I recommend you now to ask yourself, how do I ensure my business gives more than it takes? To get further inspiration on how to lead with purpose, please check out our episode 149 with Julie Kleeman and Yeshi, Jampa, founders of Taste Tibet, on connecting with your community. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share, rate, review, or subscribe to one of our channels. A big thank you to BizSimply for supporting us, bringing great insights, strategies, and tools to help the industry thrive, not just survive. Check them out at bizsimply.com or on their social at BizSimply or BizSimplyHQ, and you can also email them directly on advice@bizsimply.com. A big thank you to Fina Charlton, who is the show producer and editor from the podcast collective. Tune in next time for another interview, and in the meantime, find out more about us and subscribe to the newsletter for more Maverick insights and ideas at hospitalitymavericks.com. And don't worry, if you didn't get all of this, there will be links in the show notes. I'm Michael Tingsha, and you've been listening to the Hospitality Maverick podcast show. Be Maverick.